Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So this is a video I'm going to be covering the use of curves and the bonus tools, curve to ribbon mesh and curve to tube mesh, and how we can use them. Now, number one, what you want to do is make sure you have the bonus tools installed on your system. It's free. All you need to do is go to Google, type in Maya bonus tools. It'll take you to a link. It's a free download. You download the exe, install it, and then next time you open Maya up, you have the bonus tools menu. And there's lots of really cool additional tools that they've made after the release that are super awesome. And we will be using inside the modeling tab the curve to ribbon and curve to tube mesh. There's very, very cool stuff inside here. And I would say just explore these other tools as well. So we've got our bonus tools installed. We're ready to go. So what I want to do first is start to lay out some curves. So curves inside Maya aren't anything geometric that we actually take out into a game engine or into a renderer. These are ways we can actually use to create geometry, or we can even use them to guide cameras, to control particle effects, all these different things. We're going to use them really basically just to control some geometry. So what I'm going to do is go to create and then down to curve tool. And we've got the 6 different curve tools here. I'm going to leave you to explore these yourself. Remember that each one of these is slightly different. The first 2 are similar, but the EP curve is the most natural of a curve tool. CV curve is a little bit more controllable. So yeah, just go through and explore them tools yourself. So I'm going to use the EP curve. And I'm going to be laying out my general tree shape, my general pipe shape, whatever I want. Now, one thing to really remember when using these sort of tools is, if I'm in perspective mode like I am at the minute, if I start laying down points like this, then I'm actually doing it against the perspective grid. So they get laid out. It might look perfect from this angle, but then when I look from another angle, it's obviously very wrong. So if I'm laying out a tree, which is going to be standing upwards, I want to lay it into the front or the side view. If I'm laying in something that's on the ground, I want to be doing that on the top view. So always make sure to control your camera angles when you're doing this. Think about the camera angles that you're going to be using. You can also find the EP curve in the curve and surfaces tab, third one in. And then next to that, you've got your pencil tool, and then you've got your 3-point arc tool. So I'm going to go hold down space, hold down left click in Maya in the middle, and then I'm going to go to front view. There we go. And then I'm going to start creating my basic tree shape here. So I'm going to make this a little bit curvier than I would if I'm doing like an oak tree, just to make a point of the tool we're using. But remember, using your reference, what sort of tree you're making. Don't make it super, super complex, especially for the assignment. If you're making something that's small, you generally don't want to make anything that's super curvy, because the more kind of dynamic the shape, the more large the shape appears, or is kind of like considered by the human brain. Cool. So number one, I want to make my tree shape, and I'm going to hold X when I put my first point down in the middle of the world, because if I hold an X, it's going to snap to the middle of the grid. So that I've got a really nice beginning point, and then I can just start clicking evenly to create a shape. So I'm going to create a shape like this. There we go. So now pressing W, I complete my curve. You can see there our green line tells us my curve is complete. I go to the perspective view. You can see there I've got my curve. All nice and good. Now from the front view here, we have got the curve there. We have got that really nice shape. But from the side, we can see we've just got a flat line segment. So we need to go in here and then adjust the shape. Now just because it's an object in the scene, it's got its own context menu. So holding down right click, go into our context menu, we can go to control vertex. You can see there are these purple points are where we can actually control the shape from. So I can just grab in and move it. So I'm going to move this into a shape that I think is a quite nice shape. So I'm going to get some 3D dynamicism in here. So it's going to be going towards the camera, then away from the camera, then as it bends around. And I'm thinking about the shape. So I'll do something like that. again, just basic for the introduction. Cool. So now we got our shape here. This is a rudimentary shape. Remember in class as well, we were talking about the smooth and cut. So not having everything be overly smooth. We want to be able to have those nice smooth angles and a drastic cut, like the references on the VLE. So when this is selected, all we need to do to create geometry over this is go to bonus tools, down to modeling, and then to curved tube mesh. So when I click that, it creates a tube mesh. You can see here we've got a tube which is put over our object. Now one of the great things about this whole process is I can go in there, select my curve, hold down right click, and I can actually readjust the curve, and it controls the geometry underneath it, which is really good. Because quite often, you know, the first initial shape you put down isn't going to be your end shape. So you want to be able to go in there and do a little bit of fixing. So if I go to the channel box as well, you can see now we've got our translate, rotate, scale like normal, but then we've got our new options below here. We've got width, orientation, taper, twist, length division spacing, length divisions, and width divisions. Now these are really good because width basically just says how big the shape is. Orientation, this is a rotate. See, it's very, very subtle there. Some of you might do this and end up having like a black shape appear like this. All you need to do is go to your rotation, or your orientation I should say, and just start moving it until, there you go, it turns grey. Taper, it doesn't affect the initial beginning point here, but it'll make, going down the line, it'll make it bigger or smaller. It's very, very good for, you know, all these different applications. Twist is very similar. It doesn't move the initial point, but it'll start to rotate the end point and then start to affect down the chain like that. So very, very cool. Length division spacing, uniform, will keep a uniform distance between each of these points, each of these divisions going down. Ununiform stick to much more like what the distribution of edges are on the actual curve. So I don't have as many divisions up near the top that I do near the bottom. So there's going to be bigger distances between points here. Length division means how many edges I've got going down the length of the object. Width division, the same, how many edges I've got going round. Now, one thing to say about these two is they don't necessarily give you the correct number. Because you can see there, length division's at 1, but I don't have a cut in there because there's only one division. So, essentially, whatever it says in this window here, in this box, so it says 12 there, I've actually got 11 divisions going down it. Same for the width division. If I want 8 divisions, I'll have to put it up to 9 divisions. So always remember that. So I'll put it down to 7 width divisions, which means I've got 6 going round, which is a nice number for any sort of like curve. So I'm just going to use these to create a general tree shape, something like that. Now what I'm doing here as well is I'm not turning this taper all the way to 0, because if I do that, it's going to start merging these points at the very top together. And if I were to come to subdivide this, I'll just get a bit of an awkward shape to deal with at the very top. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, 0.01. It's looking very sharp and nice, but this is open at the end. So if I do subdivide this, it's just going to turn into quads. It's not going to turn into horrible sort of like quads that I'm having to kind of produce from a triangle. Cool, and that, you know, that's essentially the production of the initial shape. I'm not going to go super crazy on the length. I'm not going to go super crazy on the width or anything like that. I'm going to make something that I can go in there and modify myself. So I want to give myself a nice little bit of breathing room to add edges in, bend it, shape it. Same for the width. Now, before I actually do anything, I've just got to make sure that I'm able to completely affect this without ruining anything here. So you can see we've still connected to our object. With this, our control points are still controlling our object. So I want to split this away. So all I've got to do is select the actual geometry itself, go to Edit, Delete by Type History, and now this shouldn't affect it. So now we've got that curve done. I can go in there and I can add edges, I can make the shape how I want it to be, you know, using our basic tools. Insert edge loop tool, bevel, bridge, all this sort of stuff. I can really make the shape how I want it to be. Now, this does give us a initial UV set. It's not a perfect UV set by any stretch of the imagination, especially if we kind of pay attention to our shape of our object compared to our UVs. We go from a big area to a small area. So you can see there's a bit of a size difference, and this obviously doesn't kind of give us a correct layout. And if we actually have a look at the wireframe, the checkerboard itself, you're going to see that we don't get a good layout of the checkerboard. Now, something this simple, where it's just a straight piece of geometry, well, a single piece of geometry, it's not overly deformed. We've not got a really large base and a really, really thin top. You know, it's manageable. Literally, all we need to do for this is grab everything and just do an unfold 3D. We're going to get a decent unwrap there. So if we check our checkerboard, you see that that's much nicer, much better to work with. If we were dealing with something which was very, very bendy, very, very curved, that had a lot of information, a lot of size difference going down the, so a very, very big base, maybe up here is very thin. Maybe here's really thin, going to a big area again, going to a big area again. So we got something like this where we had a lot of size changes. What I would maybe think about doing is cutting at the smallest sections and having different UV sets for each one of those areas, just like we would do if we were looking at an object where we need to unwrap it all in one go, like a man-made object. Same sort of thing. The problem being with this, or the task we have then, is just making sure that we can have the texture naturally, or we hide any texture seams from around these areas. That's our main kind of job for that point. But that's very achievable. To bring that back to normality. And that's it. That's the creation of these assets. And that's the main trunk. If I wanted to make some branches to put in it, boom, 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 boom. So I can lay out some nice shapes there. Bonus tools. There we go. And then I can affect these the same way I've been doing everything. So I can even all together at the same time as well. So I can decide the width of all of them. I can see if I can get all of them looking. So I have to do different for that one. Yep. I can get the taper all the same. I can get the twist all the same if I want to do some twisting on these. I can get them all looking a bit twisty. I can even set the length divisions the same. And then from there I can just duplicate these off, move them into my tree, and then start placing them in and creating our branches. And then I will go about the same sort of unwrap method as I did with the main tree. So in this case, because these are very, very simple, all I need to do is do an unfold 3D on these. It's really very, very simple. When it gets difficult is when we start to extrude from the actual tree itself. Now, if we were to extrude from the actual tree, what we'd need to do is basically UV or project each one of those sections separately. So I have my main trunk, I will project that main trunk on its own, unwrap, and then I will grab one of the roots, one of the trunks, one of the tree, whatever, one of the limbs, and I will project and unwrap that on its own. It's still relatively simple. It's just if you're extruding from the main tree, it just takes a little bit more time because you've got to make sure that you're not sewing your limbs back onto your main trunk, and you've got to make sure that everything's scaled to be the same size in the UV area. Everything we've covered in the module so far, essentially. You just got to take time, methodical thinking, and then you're all good. So that's the curve to tube mesh, or curve to ribbon or tube mesh. Explore those tools. Have a think of what you could do. The ribbon mesh is really good for doing draped foliage, for doing hair, for doing static trails of smoke or fog or anything like that. It's really, really, really cool. So again, if you've got any questions on this, if you need a little bit of help or something to be explained, give me an email, grab me in the hallway, and we'll sort it out for you. Cool. So that is the curve tool and the ribbon mesh tool.